We'd like to introduce you to a revolution unlike any other throughout the history of mankind. This is a wealth revolution, and it's going global. Did you ever think that you'd be able to benefit from the only real, time-honored investment mankind has ever known? Real estate. Real estate investing has only ever been accessible to a small percentage of the world's population. This is no longer the case. The wealth revolution means that wherever you are on your wealth journey, be it taking your first steps or taking off globally, you can join our global community, a community of real estate investors just like you. The Global Wealth Group is experiencing exponential growth, and wealth has never been this accessible. A truly global wealth revolution. We dream big, and our dream is to impact the lives of 1 billion people. 1 billion people. How will we do this? Through groundbreaking digital platforms that allow investors like you to take part in exciting real estate investment opportunities. These opportunities are waiting for you everywhere, anywhere, worldwide. Now you can invest in real estate with any amount of money, from the comfort of your couch or your internet device. Introducing our global brand ecosystem. Wealth Create, Wealth Migrate, Wealth University, the Wealth Movement.
Hello to all of you and welcome to our second webinar in the series of Scaling 5.0. We're really excited tonight, and tonight we've got some amazing panelists that are going to be joining us to run through how do you build scale through partnerships. Now, before we get started, I want to talk about a very exciting partnership that we've done with B1G1. Now, B1G1 stands for Buy One, Give One. They've raised over $250 million. They've delivered over 100 million impacts around the world. And as part of an interactive thing, our whole philosophy is we want engagement on this webinar. And so if you ask a question and you put down T, that means that we will plant a tree. If you put down W, it means that we'll provide clean drinking water for a day for some community. And if you put down E, we'll provide 1 day of education for a child somewhere in the emerging world. And so let's engage. If you've got questions, let us know. Where are you from in the world? Tell us where you're from. But remember to put a T, a W, and an E. And just by the way, for all the people that have registered here, we already are going to give a significant number of days education. So why are we doing this? Well, we fundamentally believe that to scale through partnerships, it's all about value, and it's also about aligning purpose. And our purpose is ultimately to help solve the wealth gap. How are we going to do that? Well, when you look at a company that is scaling, if you look at the left-hand side here, you've got the company value. At the bottom, you've got time. You've got the S-curve. A lot of people have heard of the S-curve. You've then got the startup phase. Now, this generally takes about 3 years in a business. Then you've got the scaling phase. Then you've got the mature phase, and ultimately the listed phase. If you look at it, they tend to be funded by founders and seed investors, then venture investors, then large funds and corporate money. This section here is typically post-revenue, pre-profit, and this is typically profitable, predictable, lower growth. Where are we now? We're literally at the base of this S-curve, okay, in terms of this process. And where are we going? To the top of the S-curve. What does one need in this stage? Capitalization, scaling skill sets, discipline and frameworks, and investor activism and evangelism. And what's really important here is that during this process, it often leads to leadership changes, reorganization, and specific business units with specific focus. Willem van der Post talks a lot about the 3 T's, train, terminate, transfer. And he says in this phase, you don't have time to train, it's just terminate or transfer. And then again, the importance of investor activism and evangelism. So where are we at? Well, we did a raise on Cedars 3 years ago at the beginning of 2019, and we used Wealth Migrate, which was our B2C global real estate marketplace. We've subsequently created proof of concept and ultimately product market fit. We raised $2.5 million. We invested in building our tech, our digital wallets, our supply and due diligence teams, and ultimately our global compliance. We dropped our minimum from $1,000 to $100. And we increased our distribution to 83 affiliates, 13 channel partners, 7 strategic partners, and 2 country partners. We've now got members in 171 countries, investors in 69 countries, and we facilitated $1.18 billion in investments with over $100 million going through the platform. However, now we are ready to scale. What is our growth strategy? Well, there's 3 different areas. The first is distribution, and we do that through organically growing our own platforms, our B2C strategy, or through our strategic partners and our B2B strategy. And just by the way, next week, we will be focusing a webinar on the organic growth within our own B2C strategy. This week, we're focusing on B2B and strategic partnerships. The second is about profitability. It's all about increasing conversion metrics and ultimately reducing cost per transaction and increasing scalable operating profit. And the third is enhancing the ability of our technology. We've got a 3-phase strategy. In phase 1, which was 2015 to 2020, it was about high net worth investors. It was about dropping the minimums from $100,000 to $1,000. It was about figuring out how to scale both the tech, the banking, and the compliance, and ultimately including the 6-step investment framework, which I spoke about last week. We've just started in phase 2, and this is all about scalable operating profit. And there's 2 parts to this. There's organic growth with our 3 core platforms, Wealth Create, Wealth Migrate, and Private Wealth Global, which again, we are talking about next week. And then there's venture building, or what we call strategic partnerships. And that's a growth through geographic and genre-based partners. And that's what we're dealing with tonight. Then we finally will go through to phase 3 in 2026, which will be a combination of local and global investors, all transacting through a local meta marketplace, all of them going through the 6-step investment formula and putting smart investing in every single person's pocket. And if we look at that visually, you can see that we've got our core technology, Wealthpoint, sitting at the heart, our wallets, our compliance, our due diligence. We've got global marketplaces and we've got local marketplaces. We've got real estate and diversified assets. We've got genres and we've got community. So we started with Wealth Migrate. It was our global real estate marketplace. Then we built the Wealth University. Then we built the Wealth Movement, which is all around community. Then we launched Wealth China, which was at the end of 2016, early 2017. Then we basically launched Genius U, which was a private equity investment. We did 3 raises for them. They're currently listing on the New York Stock Exchange. We then did Zuza, which was a UK-based developer in England. We did Cashbox, which was a structured note. And we even launched our high net worth kind of first class offering with Private Wealth Global. And this is where we ended at the end of 2021. We are now launching Wealth India, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, and Shariah Wealth. And there are 2 big core focuses for this quarter. And with time, we'll launch Wealth SA, we'll launch Women in Wealth, we'll launch all the other geographic partnerships, we'll launch more genre partnerships, and ultimately next year we'll launch Wealth Create, where we'll get the minimums down to $1. What is the revenue model? Well, it's quite simple. As I said, next week, we're going to be going through our B2C solution. Tonight, we are going through our B2B solution, which is all about partners and distribution. We have 14 different platforms that are already live. And if we look at our country partners, the first country partner we've got is China. As I said to you already, they went live in 2017. And we learned some very difficult lessons in China of what works and what doesn't work. We're now in the process of launching our second country partner, which is in India. And again, tonight, I'm extremely excited to share with you our partner on the ground in India. And we are a little bit further down the line with India. However, with Shariah Wealth, we literally are waiting for our Shariah certificate. We did our training last week, and we're very excited to be working with our partner, Ismail, who again is online tonight and is going to be able to take us through the entire process and what is the opportunity within Sharia compliant products around the world. And what's interesting with their company, GIFS, which is the global Islamic financial services firm, they've raised over $12 billion already. And so it's really an area that they specialize in. So you've got a geographic partner on the ground that really understands the Indian opportunity, and you've got a genre-placed opportunity that really understands how we can grow and take it forward. And so without further ado, I wanted to introduce our panelists. And what I would ask is that Linden, Ish, and Ismail, if you could just give us a quick 2-minute intro into who you are, what's your expertise, what do you do? Linden, what is a PMO? Ish, what is your background in India? And Ismail, let's start with what's a Mufti, because I think a lot of people won't know what that is. But Linden, maybe you get started.
Thank you, Scott. Good evening, everyone. So my name is Linden Booth. As Scott said, I'm the head of product for Wealthpoint in the Global Wealth Group. The head of product, I like to describe it for those who might be thinking almost of a Formula One car. The head of product is not the racing driver. He's not the mechanics. He's not the coach. The head of product is the person who kind of takes a step back from actual race day and makes sure we've got the right car on the right race, and we've designed it properly to the rules of Formula One, and we've decided whether we're going to be an electric vehicle or a petrol vehicle or a jet engine vehicle, and has put the entire thing together to make sure we can actually put a car on the platform and race. So my job is to evaluate what are we actually trying to solve, what is the problem we are trying to solve, what are the constraints that might be there, whether it's technology or compliance or business model constraints, and then really build the entire offering that the company puts out to the marketplace based on a very big picture of all of those different constraints and opportunities. So most of my day is spent getting feedback and listening and watching what's happening, both on our own platform, but also in the marketplace in general, and then really thinking through how we are translating that into meeting the needs of investors at a global scale and making a scalable company. Yep, that's me. Thanks, Scott.
Awesome. Thank you, Linden. Ish, tell us a little bit about yourself and what's happening in India. Where are you?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. This is Ish. I'm based out of New Delhi in India. And, I'll just take a little from what Linden said. So currently in India, I am the mechanic, the driver, I push the car, I do everything, but we're building a good racing car that's going to, race ahead of the rest of the pack. So I'm 100% sure that we have a good Formula One car that's going to come up and win the trophy at the very end. So having said that, my background is 30 years in business. I've been associated with large corporates, both India as well as multinational. I've worked across 5 continents. And I've been an entrepreneur twice over. I've built 2 of my own companies, one of which I've taken to the stock exchange and it's had an IPO. I've been associated with the startup ecosystem for the last 12 odd years. I work with a number of small, medium, and large startups. I'm very, very active within the financial services ecosystem, very active in the real estate space. I've run a private equity fund that has done 3 fundraisers and raised close to $600 million for real estate, hospitality, and infrastructure projects in India. From my perspective, I think India is a phenomenal market as of now. We'll talk more about it later in the evening, but happy to answer questions or at the end of the day, help anybody gain knowledge about the Indian ecosystem. Thank you, Scott.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much, Ish. And Ismail, I'm not sure if you're available. I know that you said that you might be a little bit late, but I'd love you just to explain a little bit about yourself. What is a Mufti, and also tell us about gifts.
Thank you very much, Scott, for your kind comments and for allowing me this opportunity to present at this esteemed platform. So I am a Mufti as a Sharia scholar, which is of the highest level of learning in the Islamic faith, equivalent to like a judge in conventional terms. And I'm also a qualified banker. I worked in the investment banking industry, and GIFS, Global Islamic Financial Services Firm, is essentially a one-stop shop for Islamic financing and investment solutions. In other words, we are a global investment banking house in which we have 4 divisions. We have a CIB division, corporate investment banking division, in which we have done deal advisory of over $8 billion. Second is we do private equity, we do prop trading on different exchanges, and last is we do financial services and wealth management. So the group is headquartered out of Dubai. We have offices in South Africa, Turkey, and this year we should be setting up in London and Moscow. However, we have a strong base of a good couple of thousand investors, and we are seen as thought leaders and pioneers in the field of Islamic finance. And that ties into our motto and our tagline, that is financial services for the future. So we believe that financial services will be disrupted and is currently being disrupted. And if we don't innovate and grow, then we will be disrupted and we will digress. So in terms of the potential partnership with the Global Wealth Group and our relationship, we believe that through sound and strategic partnerships with partners like the Global Wealth Group, we are able to leverage of strong technical expertise in order to provide a unique solution to the almost 2.6 billion Muslims on the planet. And just to give you an idea of the opportunity of Islamic finance and Islamic investments, if you look at our own continent in Africa, over 50% of the population, of the African population, belong to the Islamic faith. And that translates into a number of almost 540 million. So a large number of that are obviously unbanked. And this is where the fintech solution of the Global Wealth Group and specifically Wealthpoint will play a pivotal role in terms of providing unique access to these poor, impoverished, and undeveloped societies that would be able to have access to global investment opportunities. And this is why we like, the fintech proposition, and we believe that this will, provide unique solutions to our community. Thank you.
Awesome, Ismail. Well, thank you very much. And what I want to do now is I've got a couple of questions that I've set up, and I thought what we'll do is we'll start with Linden, who's organizing the Formula One race, and let's get into understanding the technology that's at the core. Then we're going to pivot to Ish, and we're going to talk about, because we've got 2 types of partners. We've got a geographic partner, so we're going to talk to Ish, who's a geographic partner on the ground in India. And then we're going to talk to Ismail, that is a genre-based partner with the Islamic Finance, the Sharia Compliant opportunities. So, Linden, without further ado, I'd like to get into Wealthpoint, and Ismail actually referred to it because it's the heartbeat. It's if we keep using the Formula One metaphor, it's the engine, it's the chassis. It's really, we can have a number of different race cars, but they're all using the same battery technology, the same engine, etc. And the first question I've got for you, Linden, you explained it to me so well a couple of days ago, the whole concept of value versus leverage. And how does this relate to scaling and specifically kind of Wealthpoint and partnerships? And I don't know, Linden, if you want me to stop sharing, if you've got any diagrams you want to share.
No, I think this is something that can be best explained using something we all understand in our heads, which is 2 legs. So, for any exponential growth company, value and leverage are your key. They're almost the 2 legs that allows you to walk and then start running. And they have to be in balance. It's no good having a one leg that looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger's leg and the other one looks like a 3-year-old. You're never going to get anywhere, and you're certainly not going to get anywhere fast. So you have to have both legs in balance. But sometimes one leg goes in front of the other, and then the other one catches up and overtakes, and then the next one has to go forward again until you're running, in which case both look like they're moving equally fast. But definitely at some initial stages, the legs have to almost follow after each other. And value is when you've added value, when you've come up with something, you've created something, you've solved the problem that a lot of people experience, and you've invested a huge amount of time and knowledge and energy to finding out what that solution is. But once you've got that solution, it's no good having a great solution in a warehouse that no one's visiting. So you have to figure out, how do we leverage the value we've created? And I think that's at the heart of any exponential company, and certainly at the heart of where we're at right now. We have had multiple cycles through Wealth Migrate's 5-6 years of value creating, then leveraging, then learning from that experience and creating new value and different value. And I think we've just come out of a massive 18 months of the experience of value creation, where fundamentally at the heart of it, we realized we had built a really good car of 2-3 years ago. And then we realized, actually, we don't have to only have one car in the race, we can own the race. So how do we just slightly pivot so that we can have multiple cars, all using our technology, our understanding, our knowledge, and then we can actually race with all the cars using our underlying technology. So we've just come out of that value stage. And maybe Scott, actually, if I can just share my screen for a second.
I've got this. I don't know if you want to show. I've got this.
No, it's okay. I think it's a great slide, but not necessary for now. If you will just let me share my screen quickly. Yeah. I think this is one of my favorite slides that we use a lot with our partners, with our potential partners. Just put it up here. Give me a second. Can you all see the slide?
Yes.
Fundamentally, the problem we're trying to solve is to make it very easy for an investor anywhere in the world to invest into some of the best commercial institutional real estate opportunities around the world. And we want that to be so simple. Sign up for free, set up your account, browse, invest, and earn. Literally 4 simple steps. But underlying that is a massive amount of complexity, whether it's how to find and work with the best partners in the world and get them to buy into us and give us opportunities, the due diligence protocols to robustly test those until we have them right. There's a huge amount of compliance, there's structuring, there's technology associated, financial movements. And with our partners, these 2 yellow pieces down here with our strategic partners, a massive amount of understanding the environment of different client bases. And this is the value piece. This is where, to create that top experience, we have to add all the value underneath in such a way that the investor doesn't even realize what is happening under the water level. And it's taken us a lot of time and energy to create the value to a point now where no value actually needs to be created anymore. Our focus strategically must be on leveraging, must be on taking the value we've already got, which is immense, which is world leading, and getting it out there to as many people as possible. And that's really at the heart of the pivot Wealthpoint's done, is to go to a point where we say, how do we go from just having our own platform that's doing well to, instead of one platform, to 30 or 40 or 50 platforms that are all being used by our partners. And so that's really the heart of the value leverage. Our company is definitely moving aggressively into a leverage phase for the next 6 months at least.
And then it sort of ties in maybe with question number 2. And just before I get to question number 2, I'd like to just make a comment that I actually got interviewed today by VentureBurn. Now, VentureBurn said something along the lines of, Wealth Migrate's been around for a while, and what great technologies are you using? And what I used was very similar to what you've just said, where I said, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And I actually went and I said, look, we're not trying to have loads of different gadgets and all this. We're trying to make those 4 simple steps simpler, 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 and then ultimately safer, safer, safer. And I literally took him through it in little under 5 minutes, the platform, and he was sort of blown away actually by I literally invested in Australia in 30 seconds. Tell us in terms of, so that's again a B2C, helping one person invest. But what is Wealthpoint offering partners? Like, yes, we've just seen the iceberg. Yes, you've got all of that. But what are they actually giving partners? Why are financial institutions? Why is GIFs here? Why is Ish here? Why are you and Ish talking to some of the biggest players in India? What are they interested in? What problem are you solving for them? That's probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah, Scott, I think the answer to that is let's go into a different asset class, because it might just be a simple way to explain it. Whether it's cryptocurrencies or the share market, you need a trading platform. You need something that allows you to trade for opportunities from multiple different sources, multiple different deal suppliers in one place that's extremely safe, that's compliant, that's regulated, and that is a great user experience. And in the real estate space, there is not that platform, certainly not at the institutional quality level. This is a space, this fractional ownership space, that's grown rapidly over the last 10 years. We've seen a loss of a lot of companies during that time as they've fallen away. And I think you're beginning to, in the space, we're beginning to get platforms quite almost polarized. The one is going the easy route, which is peer-to-peer lending, small deals, not very much due diligence, and very small, the investor base is taking the risk. And then there's a second, which I'd categorize us in, companies like CrowdStreet around the world, extreme levels of sophistication in the investment. So we're going for the top of the investment market, institutional quality commercial deals. Not a small 2-bedroom house on some outskirts of London. And there's an opportunity, and that's the opportunity we're solving, is how can we give Ismail the platform, the complete solution that they can tomorrow go out to their investor bases and offer in their own brand, in their own names, a complete life cycle solution without them having to have any operational involvement. They don't have to be concerned about compliance. They don't have to worry about structuring, financial money movement. They can trust that they're getting an incredibly good set of deals with a very robust technology and compliance platform. And that's what we provide. We provide them the platform that they can add a completely new and evolving product to their investor bases in a way that is world beating.
And tell us, in terms of, if you consider some of the big players that, as an example, you and Ish are dealing with in India, why is this valuable to them? At the end of the day, in some cases, some of them are starting to disrupt their own businesses. So why is this valuable to them? What are they getting out of it? Why are they talking to you guys? What impacts COVID have? What is this whole kind of move to digital, and why is it to our benefit?
I think the move to digital is a byproduct. And what I mean by that is I think there's a move to people wanting global real estate. That's fundamentally what they want. And without digital, that's not possible. Not possible unless you have $1 or $2 million at your starting point, and you have the resources to find deals, trust deals, have your legal and compliance teams yourself, and pay for all of that information. So there is a massive demand globally amongst investors, whether they are Sharia investors, whether they're Indian investors, and both from the high net worth all the way down to a retail investor. They want good quality global commercial real estate. And it's only through the event of digitization of that process does those kind of investments become possible and trustworthy and safe in any environment. And I think that's what's driving the digital. Is not, people are not getting excited because it's digital. They're getting excited because digital has solved the problem that they need solving. And that's really fundamentally the key here, is we, through digitization of this entire investment journey, can now give them what they've always wanted, but for the last 50, 100 years have never been able to have, because it just never made sense for a small person a small scale financial person who did not have that $5 million and a whole team of experts to be able to enact for them. And digital's enabling that. It's enabling the revolution, the complete transition of what is possible for investors so that they can finally meet that investment goal of holding on to really good quality, diversified institutional investments.
I'm going to pivot, Linden, because I'm just conscious of time. I know that you and I could probably speak all evening just on this. However, I wanted to show everyone the Wealthpoint brochure. And again, I'm sure we can post this, or you can get access to it. But everything that we've actually answered here tonight, why Wealthpoint, what is it, what's in it for the investor, what are the compliance partners, why real estate, how does the investment solution work, right through the process, basically down to our sponsor selection, the risk, the designating sponsors, the due diligence, it's all here basically in terms of the entire process. And you can get access to this document if you want to read it further, and explains who the team is and how it all works, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the purpose of tonight is to just kind of give an overview of the B2B. What I want to do now is I want to pivot to India. And it's really interesting. I was reading Ish and I actually have a webinar tomorrow in India for the Indian community. And Ish, thank you very much for being online tonight. I don't know, it's some ridiculous 12:30 at night or something there. What is the time there?
It's close to 11. Yeah.
So I was doing lots of research today in preparation for the Indian specific webinar tomorrow. And it really is phenomenal, what is happening in India. A lot of people, I'm not sure if they do or don't know this, but the biggest internet population in the world is China. The second biggest is India. And it's fascinating that when you look at India and you look at the capital that's being invested in India at the moment, as an example, 4 out of the last 10 unicorns have come out of India. Tell us, Ish, what is happening in India? Why is there such a movement towards India, and to some extent, even from the venture capitalists away from China? India is the place at the moment. That's where everything seems to be happening.
Thanks a lot, Scott. Yes. So just to get into it, a little bit, a country of 1.3 billion people, I think that's a huge number of people. It also has the largest proportion of young individuals anywhere in the world. Chinese population is getting older by the day. The Indian population seems to be getting younger by the day. So that's a huge market. Since 2014, what's happened in the Indian economy is that the government has been pushing very, very heavily on making Indians digitally conscious. Today, India has the largest digital payment ecosystem in the world, even larger than US and China. I don't know how many people know about that, but it is actually the largest digital payments ecosystem in the world. Every nook and corner of the country has mobile penetration, which means people have access to a lot of content, to a lot of facilities, to financial services, to education, to entertainment, and so on and so forth, which is all digitally enabled. Now, that is huge. That is absolutely huge. What's also happening is the young Indian population, which is upwardly mobile and well-educated. India has some of the finest educational institutions in the world. And Indians consider education as something which is held absolutely on top of their list of priorities. With this young, educated Indian population, they also look at investing. They look at investing not just within their country, they also look at diversification of their portfolios. Now, just to get back to the startup ecosystem. The startup ecosystem since 2014 has shown amazing propositions. Last year, there were 80 unicorns that came out of India. Already in a month and a half in this year, we're clocking our 6th unicorn. So you can just imagine in the first 45 days of 2022, we've already had 6 unicorns. And if I look at the list of probable unicorns, we're hoping we cross another 100 this year. So the list of what I can put down in terms of favor that goes towards the Indian ecosystem is amazing. Government has created the entire ecosystem in such a way where there is a tremendous amount of support for startups, which is encouraging, which means that Indians are no longer just employees, they're also becoming employers. There's a very big initiative in India which says, make in India for the world. So Indians are beginning to create within the country, and rather than depend on technology or services from outside the country, we're creating them within the country and exporting them outside. There's also a tremendous amount of hunger within the country itself. So just one example, if you really look at it, there's a company called Reliance Industries, which has created one of the largest mother apps in the world. This is called the Reliance Jio. It's a telecom ecosystem which has mobility and which has a number of services. And people like Facebook and Google have partnered with them to come in and render services and create this mother app. And it is actually, it's worth looking at. It's something that everybody should really look at. So that's what's happening. There's a tremendous amount of venture capital, both from overseas and within India, that's being poured into the ecosystem. What happens at this stage is Indians are considered to be big savers. They consider a good bank balance. They consider investing in mutual funds, SIP, or property-based asset very important for any family. A lot of that money is now coming into this ecosystem where the startup and the entrepreneurial ecosystem is encouraged tremendously. So I think as a country, we're not just looking inwards, we're looking outwards. And that's where I see tremendous opportunity for us as a platform from the Global Wealth Group and Wealth India in particular, to look at helping Indians diversify a lot of their investment portfolios.
Tell us about this, Ish, because you did the research along with Stephanie back in July last year, which really blew me away, where there's roughly 300 million people in the middle class. The number of high net worth Indians is expected to double or triple over the next 5 years, and that's US dollar millionaires. Talk to us a bit about these statistics and what's happening. And also, I'd love you to just talk about the fact that, Indians can now move, like in South Africa or China, they've got exchange control, and they can move up to $250,000. And, it's pretty common, like in South Africa or China, for someone to go overseas and buy an apartment. But, even $250,000 isn't a huge amount of money to buy an apartment. But now using technology, there's 300 million people that can solve that same problem.
Right. Okay. So, you see, the Indian, I mentioned something to you, the young population in India, which is around that 35-year age group, is the largest in the world. And those are the guys who are ambitious, they are outward looking, and they're willing to invest in diversified portfolios. And those portfolios could be shares, it could be assets, it could be anything at all. And they're also the kind who've traveled abroad, who've seen the world, and who've done a lot of things which their elder generations never got to do. Partly because of the way India would look inwards. Now it started looking outwards. So this 300 million of middle class and high net worth Indians is probably no longer 3 million. It's probably close to 500 million. Yeah, people who have disposable income, people who have income that they invest on a regular basis. Real estate as an asset class has always been a very popular asset class. All Indians want to own a home. They no longer believe in just purely the rental economy. People want to have assets. They want to invest in assets. Even if it's not an entire asset, it's a fractional portion of an asset. So this community of high net worth individuals in particular today are in a position to invest legally through banking channels, $250,000 US per year. No questions asked. This is a very simple, easy process. It can be invested in stocks. It can be invested in real estate assets anywhere around the world. There is a process, and it's a very easy process that the banking channels facilitate quite easily. This entire population has always looked at sending their kids for overseas exposure. A lot of them are now looking at migrating overseas for second passports. That's another methodology which is being used to pick up assets across the world. Indian organizations, funds, family offices, etc., who have fairly large asset bases available with them, who have currency, who have investments, etc., are now looking overseas to also diversify some of their investments. A recent one that I can share with you, one of the top hospitality establishments in the city of New York was bought over by Mr. Mukesh Ambani, who's the chairman of Reliance Industries. He spent something close to, I think, $98 million or close to about $100 million. I'm not too sure of the figure. but he picked up one of the top hospitality assets in New York to add to his portfolio. Things like that are happening. One of the most expensive real estate deals for a hospitality asset in the UK was again done by Mr. Mukesh Ambani last year. He picked up one of the UK's premier country house hotels, which has some, which is a golfing resort, and he spent, a huge amount of money to pick it up and do it up again. So there are Indian success stories. There are others down the value chain, which is, people who come within this high net worth individual bracket. They're seeing a tremendous rise in their asset bases because they've made good investments, because they've made money through the economy opening up, because a lot of opportunities have opened up for global investors to come and do partnerships in India. So there is a general increase in wealth creation within India itself. And when there is that wealth creation increase in India itself, it also gives people that disposable income to be able to send out and to diversify their portfolios. This was never the case 5, 6, 7 years ago. And a lot of the credit for this goes to the digital ecosystem that's been created since 2014.
So Ish, tell me in terms of, and again, but like Linden, we could talk about this for hours. And I've got some research that I just want to share once you're done here. But I know you can't mention necessarily the name of the company that you and Linden have been talking to. And I know you're dealing with a lot of companies, but there's one that I know you know which one I'm referring to. And talk to me just around the value of kind of partnerships, how it's working between you and Linden. Linden obviously has explained his understanding and logic and how the technology works and the compliance, etc. You've obviously got, I'm going to call them face-to-face human relationships on the ground in India. And between the two of you, you've been incredibly effective at reaching some of the largest organizations in India so that you can scale, not just through trying to create your own distribution, but through using trusted brands that already have their distribution. Would you mind just sharing, and Linden, if you want to jump in as well, about that kind of strategy that you are taking on in India? Because, at the end of the day, yes, India represents a massive opportunity, but you have to reach the market.
Sure. So, Linden, I'll go first, and I'd request you to jump in a little later. Scott, I think the one thing that I would mention very clearly, I think since we started in October, and it's not been very long, we're just in February. The moment we started in October, I think we were able to understand, between Linden and myself, we were able to understand what's required on the ground. What do Indians require? What does the population require? They require easy transacting ability. They require the one-touch system. They require good due diligence. They require both legal and financial support. Because sitting in India trying to invest in a property in the US or in the UK or in Australia, it's not an easy proposition. And we as Indians, we tend to still be very careful about what we do if we don't know what we're doing. However, the digital age, the legal and the financial systems that have been set up have changed a lot of things. Now, a lot of organizations in the real estate aggregation or consolidation space have large customer bases that we've been able to access. And the one that you're talking about in particular is probably India's largest media house. They're a diversified conglomerate, which is there in print, digital, electronic, you name it. They've got digital assets across the world. They've got radio, they've got newspaper publications, they've got online publications, they've got television channels, and they've got a huge, which is probably today India's largest online real estate business. Once again, I'm not going to take any names, but we were very effectively able to engage with them. Just to give you some numbers, we've had, this particular organization has close to 60 million people on their platform already. 60 million people. And those 60 million people are across segments. But if I were to look at just purely the high net worth individual space, just the high net worth individual space, they are able to sift out and have distinct leads of close to 1.15 million people a month. And that is not small. We're talking large numbers, 1.15 million people every month. And that number is just going up. And we are looking at various initiatives that we're talking about with them, where we can partner and we can give them this access to global investing. This is something they've not seen before, but this is something they're very bullish about. And like in any other organization or in any other economy, when you deal with a large organization, it takes time to get it through. But very happy to share that I think we're on the right path, and the organization themselves is very bullish about doing business with us. And just imagine getting access to those 1.15 million high net worth individuals for overseas global investing. When we start an Indian vertical where we do investments within India itself, that number goes up to 60 million. I mean, just look at the numbers you're talking about. You're talking about having access to 60 million people that you can sell fractional ownership to. I think, I think those are the numbers that I would share. But Linden, can I request you to jump in and share some of your experiences?
Yeah, Ish, I think, and Scott, to your question, engaging with the potential partners in India has been a very exciting journey for us as a company. It does operate at a scale unlike anything we've experienced before when we've talked to European partners or UK partners. India is it's a different scale, and it's where we want to play. The great news is that what we offer has been specifically designed to take into account partners, for example, in India. So we're 95% of the way there. There is always, whenever you go into a new country, that last 5%. We need to demonstrate as a company that we have the skill set and the agility around the small minor changes that might be required to tweak the compliance or the financial movements, or be a bit more client responsive to different cultural norms. But I think we've done that extremely well. Our team has the capability to do that and to do that effectively. So it's a very exciting space for us in India at the moment. And I think what I'm also excited by is we don't only have one horse in the race. Ish has an incredible network of very, not only the large platforms, the large retail platforms, but also a lot of the family office networks and the high net worth financial advisors that support Indians, both inside of India as well as outside of India. And that is a massive market from a financial perspective. Even if you're not talking about the millions and millions of people, you're certainly talking about some real financial clout in that space. And I think, once again, we have a unique product that across the board, people have not seen before, they don't have access to, and we've made it very easy for people to use it and become involved.
So look, I'm not going to do it tonight. If you want the link to the webinar tomorrow, we can share it with you. We literally have a webinar specifically for tomorrow. Ish has shared with me some amazing research that we'll be running through in terms of the size of the Indian market, the prop tech market, where the focus has gone, what assets are happening, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not going to do a double webinar tonight because that's not the purpose. But I just wanted to share with you that we do have that webinar tomorrow, specifically focused on India at an Indian time zone when other Indians will actually be able to be present. So no, look, I'm really excited, Ish and Linden, and you guys have made tremendous progress, and it's a real pity. We were supposed to be roadshowing face-to-face at the end of January, and unfortunately COVID delayed that, but I do look forward to that roadshow. I want to pivot now, and I'm just conscious of time, to Ismail. And with Ismail, we're not quite as far down the line as where we are with Ish. As he said, Ish started in October. With Ismail, we literally are in the process of getting our Sharia certificate as we speak. In fact, we had the training last week. And what's fascinating when one looks at the size of the community, and when I was talking with Ismail originally and understanding this, Ismail, could you let us know, what is the Sharia? You started to give us some of the sizes in Africa, over 500 million people are wanting to follow Islamic finance. But you also gave me some amazing numbers in England and Europe. And there's two things that fascinate me. Not only are the number of people that are looking for Sharia compliant products, but also the percentage of current financial products in the world that are actually Sharia compliant. What is this dichotomy between supply and demand?
So I think that, as I've mentioned, that almost a quarter of the world's Muslim population are Muslim. So one can imagine that there is a huge demand for Sharia compliant products and solutions, and Islamic finance in terms of the differentiation between conventional and Islamic only comprises approximately 5% of the world's global financial system. So 25 and 5, there's a big disparity between the two. So that is where we see a huge opportunity. And given that opportunity, the Wealth Migrate intention to educate and create awareness is something that we are very keen and passionate about. And we actually have another platform called shariabusiness.com, which basically refers to the Sharia Compliant Business Campaign, in which we conduct campaigns on Islamic finance. So under this campaign, which is a non-profit, we have to date, educated close to 200,000 people across different countries, different spectrums, professional, non-professional, etc. So there still remains a huge gap in terms of education and awareness, but the opportunity is glaring. It is right there. I mean, if you look at, one of the partners here is from India, and has the Indian version of Wealth Migrate. So in India alone, there are over 200 million Muslims. So it's a huge opportunity. And what I like about this is that we are now democratizing, investments that are normally available only to, to the rich and super wealthy.
It's interesting what you just said there, because it's so interesting. When I was telling Ish, and I know you guys met on a previous webinar once, but I was telling Ish about what we were doing with you, and he was like, "Oh, we need to talk. Like, there's so many people in the Sharia space, in terms of where we can help." I know there's a question here from Eric around what is Sharia compliant. Maybe you could go there quickly, Ismail, just to explain to those people that don't know what Sharia compliant means.
I mean, so basically, Sharia compliance, is finance that is in consonance and in compliance with Islamic law that is fundamentally derived from the fundamental sources of the Islamic faith, which refers to the Quran, the Holy Book, and the prophetic teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him. So the way I normally explain it is that it refers to essentially, a merge between conventional and Islamic. So it's, a marriage between the two systems, where Islamic finance has a certain set rules of, Sharia law, and that is then, implemented within a, current system to ensure that the solution is Sharia compliant. So there are certain governance codes, etc., that need to be followed to ensure that the solutions are Sharia compliant. But some of the fundamental rules are that interest is impermissible, future uncertainty is impermissible. There cannot be any investment into sin activities like gambling, alcohol, casinos, etc. And conventional insurance is also not permitted.
I think Dinesh also put a comment there where he posted it for everyone, and he said socially responsible investing. And again, it's what, again, I want to just focus here on a strategic partner. You've got geographic-based partners like in India, and then you've got genre-based, because obviously they don't necessarily have a geographic location. It's people that are interested in investing through the space worldwide. Tell us, Ismail, we met face to face 2 weeks ago, and you were saying to me the in your experience, what you think is going to happen over the next 10 years in terms of this overall Sharia compliance space. And one of the things that I really liked is that you and I have come from a very similar background, which you gave the fancy name of EDM, which is EBM, education-based marketing. You are an ex-Goldman Sachs, so I understand all the fancy lingo. But yeah, I mean, you and I have done very similar, where we stood on stage and taught people for many years, which has built trust. And what you were explaining to me is that the opportunity not only lies in providing lies in providing investment products, but also providing educational products in the Sharia compliance space.
Yeah, correct. So I think, education is extremely critical and important, in the sense that, awareness, is an important driver. Since Islamic finance in its contemporary setting has only been around for almost 100 years. So perhaps the earliest forms of Islamic finance took place in the early 1960s in its contemporary setting. So obviously, the actual Islamic finance started off 1,400 years ago, during the time of the Prophet Muhammad himself, when the Islamic faith was started. But the modern contemporary Islamic finance and economics has only really, been around for almost 80 to 100 years. So it's still in its development stages. And if you look at certain countries, like, for example, Saudi Arabia, almost over 50% of its assets are now based on Islamic finance. So these countries have made a major undertaking to Islamicize the entire economic systems. So this is something that has been gaining traction. And if you look at the global economic system, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, the Institute for Banking Supervision, or BIS, they also have accommodated for Islamic financial transactions. In fact, the World Bank issued an Islamic bond. International Monetary Fund is also engaged in Islamic financial transactions. So it's something that has gained mainstream acceptance, and it's not simply a sideline product that is trying to find its way on the international economic system. So Islamic finance is here to stay. It is part and parcel of the global economic system, and it has been growing at a rapid rate. I mean, if you look at the latest report of Standard & Poor's, it stated there that Islamic finance is scheduled to grow at approximately 12% per annum, and it should reach close to $5 trillion worth of assets by the year 2050. And we're already sitting at close to $3 trillion of assets. So in a short space of time, it has gained tremendous growth, but there is still much more growth, much more opportunity for growth. And that is why I think the opportunity for fintech holds a lot of weight going forward.
What sort of brings me on to my next question, which was, in terms of what is the potential of the partnership between ourselves and GIFS, in terms of the strategic partnership. I mean, where do you see it? You've given some incredible numbers there in terms of 5 trillion by 2050, if I've heard you correctly. Where do you see the opportunity for the partnership that we're doing together?
So I think the greatest opportunity is in terms of, at the top end, in terms of high net worths, where a lot of them, don't receive, the right type of private client or VIP, type of service in terms of an Islamic offering. So generally you'd have, offerings on an Islamic, financial product, but your high net worths are not provided with a form of a VIP service. So I think that that's at the top end, and obviously at the bottom end, then the fintech solution plays a huge role in terms of, providing unique opportunities at a much more democratized level. And I think as part of the strategy, education, or as I mentioned before, education-based marketing, or EBM, will hold a lot of weight in terms of getting us there. So to give you a simple example, if we, for example, let's say had an event in Nigeria, for example, where we said we want to provide a training on Islamic finance, and we have, let's say, 5,000 people that attend, and we provide them with a certificate of attendance. Now, those are 5,000 potential clients for our fintech platform. So that is where we see a huge opportunity. And this is not thumb sucking of numbers. I have been to some of these programs where I've lectured to these programs myself, and I've seen thousands of people turn up. So, this is hard numbers that can make a huge impact.
Brilliant. Well, Ismail, we're very, very excited about getting started with Shariah Wealth. You can see here that I've got up on the screen what the look and feel is going to be like. Once people, get into the platform, they can actually see the logo and everything up the top. I want to kind of go to the Q&A. Before I do, I just want to do a quick wrap up and then come to the Q&A. There was one question that I think is important, and it's on, no, what's going on? Hang on, sorry. It's on this slide here. And Gavin actually said, if we're looking at 1.15 million high net worth investors in India and 60 million in retail, can we handle it at scale? And I think this is one of the most important things that Linden and Gavin have actually built out, and to be fair, the whole tech team, was that the whole system has been built to scale. So the whole webinar tonight is about scale. And if it involves human interaction, if it involved, a trust account running off a spreadsheet based out of the Seychelles, then it's not scalable. It's whereas this is, everything's built to scale. It's why we digitally integrated with digital wallets out of Europe with European compliance, so that everything can scale. And to put in perspective, the previous company that Gavin worked at, where they built the tech, was Aprio, and they were doing $13 trillion a year. So when Gavin joined us back in late 2017, early 2018, I remember him looking at Linden and I and going, your current system cannot scale. We have to build it again from scratch. And so unfortunately, we had to go through the pain of taking everything we'd built and putting it in the dustbin and rebuilding from scratch. But now that iceberg that Linden shared earlier is now built. And I think when one looks at the, whether it's 60 million, Indians coming through the retail or in the Shariah space, as Ismail said, $5 trillion coming into the space by 2050 and growing. I think I got the number right there, by 12% a year. Is that correct, Ismail? The space of Shariah?
Yeah, that's correct.
So I mean, it just shows you how phenomenal this is in terms of the growth. I wanted to just share with you quickly some remaining slides here, and then we'll go to the Q&A. And I think when one looks at it and they say, well, why are we going to see this? Well, you can wait until a company IPOs, you can try and get involved at the private equities, or you can get in this kind of growth stage where the growth scaling stage, which is exactly where we are. We are offering a safe note with seeders, and specifically what that allows is people to get a discount up front. So there's different thresholds. If you go on the seeders platform, you can literally invest from £10. If you want to do it off platform, the minimum investment is $10,000. And there's different discounts that go all the way through up to $100,000, where there's actually a 30% discount. We've got a number of investors that have come through already. Probably one of the ones that we're most excited about is the Angel List Syndicate from Jonathan Wasserstrom, which is over 4,000 prop tech investors in America are participating. Simple Capital is being our lead investor, which is taking us through to the priced equity round. And then some people say, why are we doing a safe note? We actually have a video if you want to understand what a safe note is and why it's best practice in high growth companies right now. But in simple terms, it's a bridge round for a bigger raise. And we're scaling out through partnerships at the moment, and we're building out our global compliance, which is exactly what we've shared with you. If you do go through Seeders, there's a number of different perks. You get access to our investor test, our wealth hacker community. You can get lower investor fees, and at higher levels, you can even get involved in the investment committee. And then what's wonderful at a purpose level is you can also gift to others the investor test, the wealth hacker. You can give them education and the starter packs. And truly for us, it's not only about what you're getting yourself, every single person that invests actually will be contributing at least 1 day. So for every £10 we get, we'll be contributing 1 day of education for a child in the emerging markets. So I would highly recommend that you go along to Cedars. This is I can actually go live to it. You can see here that Cedars, here it actually is. And if I just refresh quickly, we can see how many investors we've got. So we now got 253 investors, and we are oversubscribed. The way it works on Cedars is that you aim to get to 100%, and then you aim for your next target. And so, we are aggressively looking to overraise in terms of this process. And as I've already explained tonight, how the funds will be used. And then lastly, if you want to get in touch, speak to Alex Oosthuizen, who is basically driving it internally from our team's perspective. You can either take the QR code, or you can email, or you can just message now in the chat box, and Lee and myself will get back to you. Or if you want an independent third-party opinion, you can speak to Luke Bolton, who's representing Simple Capital. I'm going to leave the screen up while we answer some questions here. And there were some great questions that came through, Lee, and I'm just going to look through, and maybe you can help me with some of them. I think one of the questions was, are we looking to have Willem van der Post on the webinar? And so, yes, very much so. And I see Lee sent through the link. So tonight is with our partners, so that people get an idea of what we can do at a B2B level. Next week is our B2C level and the whole virtuous cycle. And the week after that is Willem and I talking about value creation. And then we finish off Scaling 5.0, which is 5 webinars all about scaling, with a panel of some of the biggest and best prop tech investors in the world. There'll be 3 of them that we'll be interviewing on the 8th of March, where we'll be in. Yeah, so you can see that Lee sent it through. There's a question here, Linden, maybe this one's for you. Can we have an example of one of Wealthpoint's partner success stories that's offering their own products on the platform piece? And, I know that we've been getting going. We've got 14 platforms live. We're looking at how we can help them with the throughput. But which one would you say, Linden, is one that you look at from a success story perspective?
Sure, if you let me share my screen, I'll make it real. So here's a partner of ours called Vusa. They're UK-based, and I can log in. And I'm logging in through, sorry, let me just log in here. Sign in. I'm going to log in through a generic demonstration account. And so what you'll notice about this platform is that it's their own deals that are here on the platform. It is not any of our deals. These are deals that they have brought to the platform and are using for their own investor base. So this is what we actually call a white label versus a blue label. Blue label is where it's our deals to their investor base. A pure white label is their deals to their own investor base. And this is a great example of a marketplace that has done just that. There are due diligence requirements because we're using our compliance and our structuring and a lot of our technology. Many of our compliance partners like Lemonway want to make sure that the deals that are being offered are robust and not Ponzi schemes. So even though it's not our deals, we do precursory due diligence on their deals just to make sure that they are bona fide deals. But I think this is a great example of what the question was asking.
Brilliant. Linden, I did talk about the scalable platform, but is there anything that you would add to the list in terms of the technology and the thinking that you and the technology team have come with, where everything has been built to scale? I know we used to fight over whether we did or didn't need digital wallets, but today, funny enough, I had the guy from VentureBurn ask me, and he said, oh, but if you drop it from $100 to $1, that's going to eat into the margin of your shareholders. And I said, not at all, because it's completely frictionless. And I think that's the beauty of the system.
Yeah, I think some of the examples are, for example, we pay a once-off fee for our wallet system, that irrespective of how many wallets are on it, how many transactions happen, how many KYCs we're doing. There is a bit of uptick if you go from 10,000 KYCs a month to 100,000 KYCs a month. It's an uptick, but even at that scale, the price per KYC comes down radically. So every single aspect of the platform has been designed to be automated and scaled. The only piece where we have to ramp up human interaction is on the client services. So that chatbot, that if someone's got stuck and needs help, there is even then an automatic help. But if they get past that and then need a human interaction, then of course we'll grow the numbers on that. And that also has to be customized by country. So for example, Ish in India, we need Indians who understand the local accents or particular references. For example, if they're stuck on what can I use as a KYC proof of residence, you need someone on the ground who understands that better than, for example, a South African. So that's the only bit where we have to up the human interaction, but even that's a small fraction of the process. So the entire platform has been built to scale. The spec we've created is we want to be able to handle 15,000 investments per second. And luckily the team just laughed and said that's very easy to do and has been done.
I'm going to write that down and hold you guys to that. 15,000 per second.
The tech team's ready. I'm looking at Ish and Ismail to help us put pressure on that promise.
Yeah, so it's how we started off tonight. The value's been built, now it's about leverage. So I think there's another question. I'm just going to share my screen back here if people are wanting to reach out and talk to anyone. But there was another question by Denise, which I think is a great question. What is the value which will be derived by partnering with these two entities? Access to database, how will the conversion take place? And I think hopefully, Denise, you can see that through two different types of partners. One, a geographic partner on the ground. Ish has over 30 years worth of a business experience. One of the best things that Ish has taught Linden, myself, and the rest of the team is that when you go into a country, you need someone that is highly established, has the credibility, and a compliment to you, Ish, but I mean, you can open the doors and get in front of the right decision makers, you know, versus kind of a young 30-year-old with lots of energy but doesn't actually have the relationship. So you're dealing with the right people at the right level right from the start. And what we're trying to do, and hopefully we've explained this tonight, because I know that Denise asked this quite early on, is that we're trying to look to leverage by partnering with companies that already have trusted brands and have distribution. So, you know, and Ish mentioned a great example of that, you know, tonight, and that can then use the throughput on the platform. I don't know, Ish, if there's anything you would add to that, and or Linden. And it's just an example on the geographic side. It's exactly the same on the genre side, you know, where Gifts and Ismail have access to large distribution. And it's again, it's the same thing. It's trusted brands with large distribution using our platform.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing, Scott. So yes, it is a distribution game, you know, and you've got to get in through the right doors, put your foot in, and make sure it sticks there. You've got to, you know, in a country like India, for example, there are so many different distribution partners. There are those private wealth management companies that deal with the high net worth and ultra high net worth. There's an entire digital ecosystem which deals with investments that could range from 100 Indian rupees to millions of rupees. There are those ecosystems. They have reach. They have tremendous reach. There are, you know, the banking and financial services companies which do mutual funds, which do insurances, which do other investment-related products. We could work with them. So reach is tremendous, and you know, partners of different types are the ones that we will use to, you know, spread our message far and wide. What we need to do is we need to deliver consistent quality of service. We need to ensure that we're transparent. We need to ensure that our technology works well, so that, you know, we don't end up having volume but not being able to cater for it. So I think that's where you know, the platform, like Linden has explained it, is actually built to scale to those levels. 15,000 transactions per second is a healthy number, you know, that can be taken up if, you know, well, India for one, and Shariah Wealth, and, you know, number of others actually come into the system. What I'm not counting now is, if I were to, you know, I've excluded this in our entire discussion. If you look globally, the non-resident Indian population, wherever they go, is huge, and they form amongst the top X amount of percentage in any economy that they go into, whether it's the US or it's Europe, Anywhere they go into, they do exceedingly well. And they're the guys who invest tremendously in assets, in savings, etc. So where I'm coming from is that, yes, we've got the right groundwork, we've got the base, we need to build on it. There are different kinds of businesses that we can do. And what I'm not even counting right now is when we set up an India to India focused vertical, that in itself opens up trillions of dollars. So as of today, 13% of India's GDP is focused towards the real estate and construction industry. Now, those numbers are huge. 13% of India's GDP. Yeah. Now, I don't even want to get into that until we don't actually get our first clients on the ground and, make sure we deliver a consistent product. So I think potential is huge. We need to get in there. We need to do the job. We need to show what we can scale up to and move further from there.
Brilliant. And there was a second question Denise asked, and Denise, I'd like to repeat it, where our goal is to do 1 million transactions in a calendar year at an average transaction size of $2,000 with an average fee monetizing supply and demand of 5%. That would equate to $100 million in revenue, which at a 10x multiple would be $1 billion business. That's the one way of looking at it. I got asked today by Venture Burn, if you empower 1 billion people, you'll automatically have $1 billion business. So these strategic partnerships, this leverage that Linden's talking about, is all about increasing shareholder value. Basically, in simple terms, our North Star metric remains transactions. And the more transactions we do, it's a seesaw, obviously, depending on the average transaction size and the average fee size. And ultimately, that equates to value. Anonymous asked, I see the Wealthy coin is still part of the presentation. Is this still happening and when is this a reality? So yes, it is very much part of the future. There's no doubt that people will be investing using the blockchain. Whether you call them a security token or an NFT, it's guaranteed to be coming. We did have to put the project on hold for 2 reasons. One is because security tokens are not regulated yet. And secondly, with our partner in Lemonway, we were not allowed to be involved in cryptocurrency, etc. We will be working on this in a skunkworks project and looking to bring it out as and when security tokens are a reality. But there's no doubt in any of our minds as to whether it's going that way. And it's certainly something that Linden and I have regular conversations on and wanting to kind of build a skunkworks. So whoever Anonymous is, reach out to us and join our skunkworks project in terms of making that a reality. We did learn one thing the hard way back in 2018. You don't have a traditional marketplace using fiat currency like Wealth Migrate and then bring in a kind of cryptocurrency, because it's people think you've gone into woo-woo land and it actually impacts the institutional investment, etc. So you've got to keep them separate as skunkwork projects in terms of how we do that. And as Linden often says, we actually have tokenized property already. We've just tokenized it based on $1 in terms of the process. Then another question here. Wealth Migrate has been in the scaling phase for years now. How long do you intend to stay in this phase? Until we win. And yeah, I did explain the 3-phase strategy. I think we made a lot of mistakes in the first phase, trying to figure out what to do. Probably the fundamental mistake we made, and I've already explained it tonight, was the technology we built 2015, 2016, 2017 wasn't scalable. It was a system to help private equity investment into medical deals in America, integrated with PKF in the Seychelles. It could do one thing and it could do it in quite a clunky way. We've now built a truly scalable solution out of Europe with European compliance, with digital banking, with global, everything in place. So, with the ability to do 15,000 transactions per second, which I still agree with Linden. I look forward to testing the tech to make that happen. Anonymous has also asked.
Sorry, Scott, maybe I can jump in there. I think what's important for everyone to realize is that we are very conscious that the phase of the business we're in now is leveraging. We have spent a lot of time and energy and resources in the value stage, and it is 100%, even in the way we have structured the organization, the leadership, where resources are going. We are fundamentally shifting the business ethos, culture, design, operations out of a value phase into the leveraging phase. And that is where you do get the scalable operating profit. So at an entire company level, we are all very united around that space. We're very proud of the value we've created and very conscious that now is time to deliver that value through leveraging.
Yeah, no, completely. And I think also, Linden, you know, I started talking about when we did Cedars last time, what that capital was used and what's been built. And in simple terms, that capital was used to build value. Now we're doing it again, but this time it's growth capital to leverage. And that's why even in terms of the use of funds, over 50% is in distribution and leverage. So in terms of that overall process. Eric asked a question, is it only about Indian people investing in the world or are foreigners investing in Indian property? And I think, Eric, one thing that's quite clear that Ish, and I was very, very chuffed when him and I first spoke, we've got it in a 3-phase strategy for India. So the first phase is to help Indians in India invest into first world product using all our current existing infrastructure. We can do all of that right now. Then we're going to get a local license in India, which will allow us to be compliant in India to help local Indians invest in India. But to do that, we will then have to create Indian wallets, because as an example, Lemonway doesn't have rupees as a wallet infrastructure. And so then the second phase will be to get the licenses. And the third phase will effectively be to help Indians invest in Indian product. Now, I could go further and say there'll be a fourth phase, which is where it'll be for people overseas to be able to invest into Indian property, certainly NRIs, which are known as non-resident Indians. As I understand it at the moment, there's quite a lot of regulation that if Scott Picken wants to invest in India, I'm not allowed to invest in residential property, as an example. I can invest in commercial property, so it gets quite complicated from that perspective. But yes, the answer is it's a phase strategy. We're not trying to do everything at once. There's tremendous opportunity to leverage what we've already got. However, saying that, we believe that if you build the bridge of safety using technology for Indians to invest overseas, there's no reason why that bridge can't go the other way to help people overseas. And let's start with the NRIs to be able to invest back in India. The next phase of rollout is where we have international customers investing in India. Oh, you've already answered that. Sorry, I didn't see that, Ish.
Scott, there was a question from Ian Hawthorne asking whether previous investors in through Cedars would benefit from the safe note.
So every shareholder was offered what's called a follow-on. So every shareholder, whether they were a previous Cedars investor or whether they've been direct, I know Ian's been a direct shareholder for a long time, we call them a wealth partner. Everyone was offered the opportunity to participate in the safe note, but it's one has to actually invest in the safe note to be able to participate and to get the benefits. So yes, all the previous investors were given the first option before we went to Cedars, and that's why $740,000, which is about 75% of all the capital, came from follow-on investors. I'm not sure, Lee, if that's answering the question, but that's my understanding.
Yep, I think it does answer it. Thanks, Scott.
Well, can I check? Because if I can, Ian, if the answer is when you invested through your previous Cedars investment, there was a share price set at the time, and that's the shares you got at. So that it's not a roll on from there. So you will have the shares you got at the share price you got them 2 years ago. It's only if there's been a follow-up investment now that you would benefit from the safe note conditions.
Yeah, no, that's right, Linden. So I unfortunately, I know we've lost Ismail. I think he said to me he only had a full hour, and so unfortunately I think we've lost him. Lee, I can see that from the questions, I think we've answered all the questions, and so what I'd like to do is move to wrap-up phase. Before we wrap up, Lee, I do want to just ask you quickly, how are we looking on the partnering? I do think that a number of people forgot about it, because Trevor Harding just said great direction, exponential platform, business to scale, but he didn't put a W, a T, or an E. And Eric said, thanks, Scott, and he didn't put a W, a T, and E. And Ian said, okay, thanks, without a W, T, and E. So if anyone wants to get in their W, T's, and E's, let's provide some water, some trees, and some education. And you might get used to this. Lee and I are very, very excited about this engagement strategy. But Lee, where do we stand on this, and how do people find out the impact that we had just from tonight?
We will, with the recording, share the impact that they have had. At the moment, we are sitting with 10 days of clean water. We are sitting, besides the 47 days of education, we have 6 days of education, and we are planting 3 trees at the moment.
So my invitation to everyone before we close out tonight, and we're going to have closeout comments from everyone, please go out and spread the word about Cedars. Please tell the world about it. For every single investor that comes online, even from £10, we will be providing 1 day of education for someone in the emerging world. And we believe that not only do we have a profitable opportunity, but we also have a purposeful opportunity. And so I just want to, that's probably should have been my closing comment, but I just wanted to reinforce that as a community company, we need to get the community message out there. Cedars is going to be live for about another 3 weeks. And, the more people we tell, the more opportunity we've got for people to participate. But Lee, over to you to close out.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much, Scott. And thank you to our panelists for being on with us tonight. Ish, any closing comments from you as we say goodnight to our attendees?
I just, what I would mention is I think there's tremendous potential. What we've spoken about today, we're just scratching the surface. We've not even gotten into the depth. I think some of the things that Linden and myself and Scott and myself and Linden have had the opportunity to discuss, we don't want to go 3 years down the road and not be able to achieve what we've designed for the next 6 to 12 months. I think step by step is the approach. The potential is huge. Just to give you one figure, last 6 months have seen 124% increase in residential sales in India itself. Now, if I were to set up an India platform and I were to work on those 124% increase in residential sales, forget the commercial sales, forget anything else. I'm not even talking about that. If I were just to focus on that one piece, the numbers are absolutely staggering. So there is enough and more for us to do. We want to bring the world into India, and we want to bring Indians to the world. It's a step-by-step approach, and I think we're going down the right road. The platform is good. The initial response we've got has been overwhelming. I mean, honestly speaking, I think Scott or Linden could tell you that I'm sitting on my laptop till 3 o'clock in the morning trying to answer emails of people wanting to talk to us about it. So that's what we're really looking at as we go by. I think it will become a lot clearer. Execution is key, and that's what we're focusing on right now. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ish. Linden, do you have any closing comments?
Yeah, Lee, I think the focus for us and the focus for us is focus. And so just to really get that point across, in my role as head of product, I get suggestions from people every day about what else we can do. Why don't you add this feature or that piece, or let's take it into this environment. And just a preparatory warning to everyone on this call, for the next 6 months, you'll probably get an answer from me, thanks, but later, because right now our focus is on leveraging the value that we have spent a lot of time and energy to create. We have a remarkable product. We don't need to add to it. We don't need to change it. We need to sell it, and we need to make a lot of money by helping a lot of people. And that is a very strong focus for the entire company and team. So the real focus is on leveraging the value we've already got, which is remarkable.
Thank you, Linden, and I couldn't agree more. We do have a phenomenal product that a lot of people are interested in, so great job there. Scott, any further closing comments from you?
Yeah, just a quick one. Shimon asked, have you got a resource that we can post on social media around Cedars? Lee, I'm not sure, do we? And if we don't, we should post it out. We can put it on the WhatsApp groups and stuff so that people can share. Do we have something that we could share?
We don't. But you are correct, and we should. So we will get that through to you tomorrow morning, and we will also share it through on the different groups. Thank you for the suggestion.
Yeah, and thanks for that. And I think just on that note, if anyone else has other suggestions, and I know Dinesh said he's got a lot of experience in the tourism not tourism, sorry, the can't even remember now. I'm going to call it tourism property in India. So again, we're a community company. We're only as strong as our community. So please bring all the ideas. Yeah, look, to close out, I think, Lee, there's nothing much more to say other than 1.15 million high net worths and 60 million retail through one partner in India, 200 million Muslims in India that are Sharia, Islamic, and that only 5% of the world's financial products are Sharia compliant, and yet 25% of people on the planet are Islamic, which need Sharia compliant products. What are we trying to do? We're trying to ultimately now leverage, and I think Linden summed it up beautifully. And I hope that if nothing else tonight, we leave you with one closing thought, and that's that we've built a platform that can do 15,000 transactions per second. If you divide 1 million transactions in a year by 15,000 in a second, I think we can safely say we built a system that can get us to $1 billion valuation already. Now it's time to leverage it.
Thank you very much, Scott. To our attendees, thank you for joining us. You will see that I posted the link for our webinar next week, Tuesday, in the chat box. Please do register for that. We are going to be sharing the GWG virtuous cycle with you. So if you don't know what that is, if you're interested in finding out how we're going to leverage that, please do join us next week, Tuesday. To our panelists, thank you for making yourself available and sharing such valuable knowledge on where we are going and what we are busy doing with different partnerships that we have engaged with. So thank you, everybody, wherever you are in the world. I trust that you are safe, that you are happy, that you're surrounded by love, and we look forward to seeing you on our webinar next week. Thank you.